Hello, this is Lil and welcome to my channel. So, I wanted to talk about importance of setting boundaries and saying no in all kind of situations. I've been postponing this though a while because I didn't know what people would think, and at the same time I've been a bit worried that I would always digress. Like, because that's the thing with me. I tend to start on something and I would digress to something totally different and just continue on that and not being able to keep my thoughts in one space. And I'm not really good with notes as well. I tried to make a couple, but I don't know how it's gonna go. But I was thinking, okay, all right, maybe I should just try it. And if it's not perfect, that's not what I'm going for, because I know that's not, I'm not so structured. So it's more like a personal talk, I guess. So if you want to stick around, then that's cool. So before I start, I just want to inform that I would really like to answer people's questions if they have anything in their life that they want to have an opinion on. They can send a message here in the comment field below. And if you want to be anonymous, I think you can just make an extra account within your channel and then write. If some people would add a question, I could make a video around it. But yeah, let's get to it. So the importance of setting boundaries and saying no. And I would guess I could start on a personal level first, like against either like a friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, or a family member, I guess. So a lot of people are focused on, for instance, not sticking out like a sore thumb. So it's all about breaking the habit, but it's not an easy thing. But it's about communication and compromise and being kind but firm. The thing is that a lot of people would be afraid of setting the boundaries because they are afraid of losing the person that they set the boundaries to. Or that it causes division and causes problem because of that. But sometimes you really have to just take a leap and hope that some doors open up as others close. Especially if you know in your heart that something is wrong. You should definitely not let it slide. In any way where your life can improve, always look for a solution and practice critical thinking, trying to see things from more than one angle and dare to question. And you see the solution or you see the possible solution, always investigate it and see what can be done. Looking at the possible consequences of choices like this, I know it can be a scary thought, and I can really understand this because I've been there myself. Had to make some difficult choices in my life, even choices that went against what my heart felt, but I knew what was right. And those were the most difficult ones. This fear of going against the grain, making you stand out, and causing attention to you in a possible risky way. I think this might be rooted in something in our old history, that not conforming to the societal norms or the group's way, or even causing any form of resistance when people were living in caves and they really needed to stick together to survive. And if you were not a part of the group, you would probably die of hunger. And it would be very important not to be exiled from the group. It's probably quite ingrained in us all. I think one thing is that you have to kind of experience things before you actually learn from other people, because a lot of people say the same things and they be like, oh yeah, no, I can understand, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to take that leap because of this or because of that, and you have your own reasons, right? And I totally understand that because I've been there myself, and I still would say that I'm happy about my choices, even if that sounds weird for a lot of people, I could say that I'm happy about it because even if I did have some difficult times, I'm very happy about the times that I had that was good. And for the times that were bad, I'm happy about experiencing it so I could learn. Because without those things that happened, I wouldn't be able to set boundaries. And I think it's super important for everyone to understand what boundaries are. And you can set boundaries without being evil or mean about it. It is just being kind but firm. Kind of like when you're kind but firm to a dog. I'm not saying people are dogs, but I'm just saying that you have to take responsibility for yourself and your own health. And that comes first before anything else. Because if you go over and aboard to try to, for instance, be kind to people, or like overly kind, and I totally try to do that myself, but at some point you have to say, okay, now I have to think about myself. Because if I go over this border, I'm just going to hurt myself. I'm going to get depressed, or I'm going to get sad, or I'm going to get angry. It all depends on the personality, I guess, for you. But yeah, so you have to find out where your borders are. And before those borders are reached, you have to find out how to communicate that you're closing into these borders. Because say that you're in a relationship or in a family member or whatever, then it's not good that you reach a border in an aggressive, explosive way. Because if you reach a border and then you act aggressive, then it's already gone too far. You would want to find a way to communicate that you're closing to a border before you're getting there, if you know what I mean. So say that even if you are unsure about what that would be entailing, then it's your responsible also to try to figure out the best way to do it. Even if it's like, okay, if you need alone time, then okay, whenever I do this, that means I'm needing alone time, or if I do this, that means I need this, or whatever. And you could communicate with visual things if that makes it easier, or you can just say it if that makes it easier. So it depends on the personality you have. But there is important to have communication about it, and that it gets nice in a way. That it's natural and nice, and it's based on love and understanding and compassion. So this is like for any type of close relationship, if it's friends, family, relationship, anything like that. So just to mention it again, you have to break the habit if you're stuck in a thing that you don't like. But it's all in everything I say now, it's very important to just keep the kindness and love and compassion, because anything I say here is always going to be like, does it hurt the person? Don't do it. This is how you solve it without hurting the person in any way. So communication, compromise is one other thing you can say. Well, I guess if you're in an argument, I guess one thing you could say is you say it with like a kind and firm voice that when this happens, I feel that this and this. But you don't go in you, whenever you, always, never. Like, try to avoid words like that. Because that's... The thing is, people go into an very defensive state if you are choosing words that are attacking-ish the person. Even though you don't feel like it's attacking, it could... like, the receiver of your words might feel like it's an attack. So, I solve it by... like, either if there's an issue, I often say it either the same day or the day after. Because sometimes you need a little bit of time to think about it and how to respond to it. But one thing I've done is that before I would always like just sometimes not even say it. But I found out that that's actually, for me, that doesn't work. Because I found out the way that it works for me is actually talk about it with a very like normal voice like I'm doing now. Talking about how something feels. instead of whenever you do this, but whatever, right? So in that way, you can reach an understanding without it being directed at them as you did something wrong. It's more like whenever this happened, I feel something. So it's like more a cause and effect-ish thing. Another method you could try to communicate is the Socratic Method, which is a method where you use cooperative argumentative dialogue. And it's based on asking and answering questions to stimulate critical thinking and to draw out ideas and different way of thinking. It could then make the person you talk to think thoroughly through what he or she is saying and help them further understand what they stand for. So kind and firm, compromise communication, saying no, breaking the habit. And also say that you're trying to help someone and you're setting a boundary for whenever to stop trying to help someone, right? Then some people might be like, oh, but I really want to help them. I can see them reaching out for help and stuff like that, and say that they're getting the flack back in another section. Like, for instance, if this is in a relationship and you get back and forth, like either they're angry toward you, or they're like they were asking for your help and angry toward you and asking for help or whatever. Like, this can vary a lot. But say that you're in a situation where it's difficult to help them because of, for instance, that they don't want help in the moment, but they asked for help before, or that they asked for help several times, and no matter what you say and do, it just keeps repeating and nothing changes. Stuff like this, you have to, it's very tiring if you're in a situation like this. So I figured out from experience that at some point you can try to help someone. Totally. I totally say that. But you have to have a thought that you can never convince them in themselves. They have to make that choice themselves of doing whatever change. Because no matter how many times you would say, please, this and that, whatever, it's up to them in the end. And no matter how many times you wish something to be better or done differently because you would think that would help, it's up to them in the end. And I guess you just have to come to terms with that. And that comes into another point I want to mention later, which is to take control over things that you have the opportunity to take control over, and let go of the things that you cannot take control over. So at some point you have to just say, okay, I've done my part. The ball is in their court right now. So you just have to let go. So also this other point is that if you're going to help someone, then make sure that you take care of yourself. Because if it goes over to you that you get depressed by trying to help someone, then it's not gonna help anyone if you go over your borders and then you get depressed or angry or sad or something like that. So always see where you are yourself and your boundaries, and then don't go over that. And if you feel like you're going over, then just say sorry and then withdraw. You can end with some nice words just so it's out there. Something like I care about what's happening or whatever like that, but I have to withdraw now, and it's not because of something. It's just I need to take care of myself. So that would be a way of trying to set this boundary. Also, I could go into how to, for instance, argue. That's always a fun, not fun discussion, but interesting discussion, I would say. Because it's a bit interesting, because the whole thing about living, I think, is to figure out the small little life hacks, or like almost like a cheat code, like figure out how to do things better. How to actually argue in a really good way is very interesting. So before, I would always be the person that would be trying to avoid conflicts. I still do though. I think I'm rather going defensive than anything else. I'm definitely not aggressive unless I'm pushed. So yeah, so I go more defensive, and but in the recent time, because no one is perfect, so as fast as possible when I try to clear my mind, because I try to do that a couple of times if that happens, is that I think about, okay, so this is a situation right now. How can I make this better? How can we come to a compromise? How can we talk together? How can we communicate? How can we make this not happen again? And I always, in recent times, I always actually manage to have arguments that doesn't yell, and I'm so happy about that because I really don't like any type of yelling. So all of the arguments have then been just talking, which is quite cool. So how do you argue with compassion? Like I mentioned before, you would mention like stuff like, oh, when this happens, you feel and whatever, like I mentioned before. So if you ever set boundaries and you say in a very firm way what your boundaries are, and then if you ever are in a silent period, like, you know, the typical like no one talks. This is more like specifically in, I guess, in a relationship situation, I guess, but I guess you can do it with friends and stuff too. But yeah, so what you could do is that no one really wants to be in this silent treatment time period. So if you have that in mind, you can think about, okay, what do I want at the moment, and what do I wish the other one did? And for me, at least, sometimes just a hug can just solve anything. And it doesn't need to be any words at all. You could just like, if there's a silent period, you just reach out a hand, you know, and then if you get a hand back, and like almost like not like a high five, but but yeah, just because you don't necessarily need to say anything. And that's an interesting way of solving things, because if both know that they care about each other, it, like, silly things doesn't need to be an issue. You just need to show with your body that, you know, we had a thing now, but I still care about you, right? So by doing like a gesture with your body, you don't necessarily need to say anything, because saying can sometimes be more difficult. You might be like, oh, I'm still angry or whatever. I'm still annoyed. So but you can still like do the gesture with your hand. So that's actually a bit interesting, and it's been very successful. I think by doing that, it's good to be able to then say these boundaries and not being afraid of the consequences from saying the boundaries, because it's important to set them. If you are, for instance, in a relationship or a friendship or whatever, and you don't kind of say where your boundaries are, if you feel like you're always pushed, then that is probably not a good relationship or a friendship, because if you actually feel like this is bad for you and you don't say anything, then the other person doesn't even know that. So you have to find a way to actually like mention whatever is correct for you. And if you lose that friend or that relationship because you set a boundary, then that means that it was actually not a good relationship. Because if you manage to say things in a nice way and you set boundaries, then there should be technically no reason for the other one to act up. But you have to figure out, is this a compromise? How do we find the solution? And if it's no solution, then maybe that's not a right relationship or a friendship. So sometimes you just have to do some digging into what you feel is correct for you. And of course, nothing is gonna be 100%. So at sometimes you might have like a friends or whatever that you're totally super friends with, right? But you have to just avoid a couple of things, or like talking about a couple of things or whatever, because they're different than you in that way or something like that. But then you just work around that, right? So you don't have to be always 100% the same on everything. You just figure out the roadmap to the people around you. So it shouldn't be an issue if you are in the right with the right people. But yeah, avoid pitfalls like anger, resentment, overindulgence, and bitterness. You don't want to end up in those kind of things. Yeah, by focusing on understanding, love, and acceptance, you will find it much better for yourself. I have this story that I can tell about a person that I knew before. The person had this thing that he resented someone for something they did a long time ago. And when I heard him talk about it, he was still getting really emotional about it. And I was thinking, I kind of got an epiphany about it. And I was thinking, like, so this person he talks about, that person probably doesn't even think about this at all. But he's choosing to carry this thought. He's choosing to carry this resentment and anger and bitterness towards this person. And who does it hurt? That's him. And I was thinking, like, so he's actually doing the choice of holding on to this. And if he managed to let go of it, then he would actually feel better. And I can understand that it's not a simple task to let go of things, because I've been there myself. But it was just like an interesting thought. Because if he managed to let go of that, this anger and this resentment will just let go. So, yeah, try not to fall into any pitfalls like anger, resentment, overindulgence, and bitterness, yeah. And solve it by understanding, love, and acceptance, and understand that things are different than what you think, and accept it, and just general love. So you're just fine with it. It's fine. It's fine that you're different. It's fine that you have different thoughts. It's totally fine. Because in the end, you choose who you are most with, and if some people are more difficult than others to be around, then nothing should be holding you there. You can always find a different people or friends or a relationship. And yeah, that you shouldn't be stuck at some place if you don't want to. So I know this might be become a little bit long now, but I do want to mention something more. So this is a little bit about society and stuff, but also still something around you as a person. But the group mentality and the norms in your society will also have a way of making you maybe feel like you can't say no or setting boundaries. And I guess this is fear of not fitting in. But I do want to press that it's important to still keep these borders and your principles. And ask yourself, what do you want? What do you really want? And believe you can make a change in your life one step at a time. And even if it's like something that scares you a little bit, even, oh, can I lose this relationship or friendship or other professional or acquainted relationships if I do this change or if I set boundaries? But feel like what's in your gut feeling? What is right for you? That's a very important step. And if there's something you need to improve on, that's something you have to think about too. But never attack yourself, as I mentioned in the previous video. Be realistic, and be self-analyzing, but don't hurt yourself by doing it. So believe that you can make a change in your life, even if it's just one step at a time. and setting borders wherever you need to. Follow your gut feeling and see the improvements one by one, just to see if there's different things in your life that you can improve. Even if it's just small and insignificant, as long as you see like, oh, this is something I wish was different. Alright, analyze the situation and find out what steps to take to improve things. And with, of course, if it's kind to others, because you don't want to be not kind to others. So just keep that in mind. Dare to go against the current. Dare to try. Dare to be different and expand your boundaries, if that is really what you want to do. And don't settle for less if you know you can trade effort into outcome. So, yeah. I would say fulfillment and happiness comes from when you manage to take control over the things you can and let go of the things you cannot. It's also personal improvement, and that you learn as you go and understand that there will be a lot of tests along the way. And some things might be bad, some things might be good, but you will always learn along the way and you can figure out the better way to solve things next time. And you will also sometimes surprise yourself how things change and how things are different if you manage to expand how you think. Maybe you get more epiphanies like I did. So yeah, I would say that's wisdom to learn from this and figure out a better way to find these improvements in your life. And there's always going to be an up and down, as I mentioned, but we just have to grow from it. And as a final note on society and setting boundaries, remember, no matter what people say we are to do, and it feels like it goes against your gut feeling of what is right, stand by that. Your principles are yours, and don't let anyone take that from you. But yeah, I guess I can end it there. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this. Also, if you want to support me to create more videos like these and stuff like that, I do have a subscribe star if you want to donate anything. But thank you so much. There's a link in the description below. Also the donation button on the site. Thank you so much for listening. And hope you have a super good day, good evening, or good night. And as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. You can also click the bell icon if you want notifications of my uploads. And remember, live, think, and be free, and be the best person you can be. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.